Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that brings you inspiration, transformation, and leadership. We're helping you connect the dots, see the blind spots, and get unstuck so you can go out and create more leads, more sales, more growth, more profits. More importantly, so you can have a bigger impact, have a bigger reach, make a bigger contribution. Is that what you want? If that's what you want, you are going to love today's episode. Our two guests are amazing at helping you get your next big breakthrough with something that is an unusual strategy, yet a proven strategy to work. Because let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in a place and time where you needed help? And especially if you're a high-level performer, a high achiever, an entrepreneur, a business owner, but on one side, you wanted to have that face of success, and you were a little reluctant to let your vulnerability down to then just go ask for help. Like if you've faced that before, send us a comment and let us know what your experience was. I will share my personal testimony, my personal story. For decades, I was the type of person who was afraid to go to others and say, hey, I could use your help. Hey, I could use your help. And what I realized until I made this shift, it cost me time, it cost me energy, it cost me freedom, peace of mind, and a whole lot more, relationships, and a whole lot more, right? And we want to help solve that for you today. Our two special guest experts, and both have inspired me in so many different ways. You'll hear about more of that as we go. Crystal Dwyer Hansen is an international speaker, researcher, corporate consultant, author, and entrepreneur. She's worked in the field of human potential for years. She's had years working as a transformational life coach, wellness nutrition expert. She's seen people experience profound and lasting transformations in relationships, career, health, and wellness by tapping in to the thing that matters most, inner resources. She can help you, help me, help all of us be able to go out there and move from what seems to be an impossible state of anxiety, distress, depression, and hopelessness. And by the way, are we at a time right now where a lot of people are suffering from this, right? Well, would it be worth if you could move from there to triumph, freedom, joy, happiness, and more? And that's what Crystal is all about. And you're going to learn about their new book, their best-selling book, Ask, the ability to bridge from your dreams to your reality. Also with us is Mark Victor Hansen, who's someone I got a chance to meet almost 2 decades ago and certainly started studying his work before that. Is best known as the co-author for Chicken Soup for the Soul, the series, the brand. It set records in sales with over 500 million books sold, along with that audios, programs, and a whole lot more. He's also the best-selling author of The Power of Focus, The Aladdin Factor, Dare to Win, 1 Minute Millionaire, which is where we met for the first time. Personally endorsed my book way back when. There's a whole backstory to that. We probably won't have time to go into that. He's a crusader. What is he a crusader of? On helping people turn and transform what's possible to make the world work for 100% of humanity. Now, both of them are involved in a lot of initiatives to focus on the health of our planet and the need to create comprehensive, sustainable energy and water solutions. They have several companies, one here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Mark, Crystal, it's a pleasure, a privilege, and honor to have you with us. How are you?
Awesome, Dan. Thank you so much. What a nice introduction. And yeah, it's so much fun to be here with you today.
I think the world of you, and I'm glad to be back with you and friend of yours for 2 decades. I only wish that my mother were alive to hear that great introduction. You did super, pal. Oh man, it's nice to have a friend.
2002, you were on our show on NBC Radio, a champion in the making. And so it's an honor. And I want to dive right into the book. I mean, your book is I love the theme of the book, Ask, because it's something just straight away I had struggled with for years. I would be the person who would I knew I needed to get something solved, but I'd be very reluctant to go ask. So before we get into strategy and techniques and a lot of the different wisdom from the book, why did you guys write this book? Why was now the time to create it?
Well, we have traveled all over the world, and we've met so many people in 80 different countries that are wonderful, educated, professional, likable. But the difference between somebody who, our subtitle says it all, Ask is the title, and then the subtitle, A Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. people weren't fulfilling their destiny because of one lack. They didn't ask. And what you started the show with is, can you ask your way out of adversity into opportunity and disadvantage to advantage? The answer, as far as we're concerned, in our experience and all our research, says 100% yes. Asking is the biggest and most important and neglected key.
And with that, there's a lot of people that are suffering right now. We're, at the time we're doing this session, we're in the middle of COVID, 5+ months. Some experts predict the worst is coming. It's going to get worse before it even gets a little bit better. So from this perspective of ask, can you guys go to a place where you were at your lowest, maybe where you had made your biggest mistake, your biggest failure? What did you do around this idea of ask? What was the solution, and what can our listeners and viewers learn from it?
Yeah, just a quick aside, Dan. Our book was released April 28th, right in the middle of the pandemic. We had a discussion with our publisher because a lot of books were getting pushed back to the fall, and we all decided collectively that it's not a good idea to push it back. We said, you know what, this message is important right now. We think it's going to be well received. Let's move forward. And that was fortuitous because this message has really resonated with people now more than ever. Because what Mark and I found is what you were just saying in our own lives personally. Anytime we had serious adversity or a serious setback, it was asking that got us out of it. And for me, I think the most challenging time for me was when I was very young. I was one of those kids who found high school to be very easy. So I accelerated my curriculum and graduated at age 16 and married my boyfriend, who was 5 years older.
Wow.
Not a great life plan, right? So 2.5 years later, I'm in a new city by myself, no friends, no family, and absolutely no idea how I'm going to get by. Baby on my hip, right? So so I did the first thing I could think of, and that was to apply for food stamps. So the day that I was standing there ready to exchange my food stamps for my groceries, I had this huge epiphany. It just hit me like a big light in the head. And the first thing that happened was that this question popped into my mind. It was, first of all, how did I get here? Followed by a second question, are you doing everything you can to get out of this, or are you taking the easy way out? And I knew in that second that I asked myself that question, I knew the answer. I knew I wasn't doing everything I could to get myself out of this situation. So I had this instant pivot in my mind, where as I was turning over the food stamps to the cashier, I was literally saying to myself, this will not be my future. So I went home and I didn't have any answers, but I had a lot of questions. So I thought, I'm going to keep asking the questions. So just started asking, how can I start making money tomorrow? And I heard on the radio these temporary service agencies like Kelly Services. So I thought, I'll call. I applied, filled out the paperwork. They started sending me jobs, which I could say yes or no to. Started working for attorneys and convention centers and doing sales and just all these different things. And then realized I could register for more than one. So I registered for all 3 of the agencies. Pretty soon I was working every day, and I was realizing so many things about myself. It was such a growth period for me, but I realized that, I loved business, I love sales, and I really love working with people. So I made a decision to put myself through real estate school. And in the meantime, someone said, you should go model. So I approached a modeling agency, asked them if they'd sign me, and they said yes. And I did a couple of television commercials that went national. So they force you to join Screen Actors Guild, which is great because you get these great benefits. So literally about 1.5 years from the time that I was turning over food stamps, a little more than 1.5 years later, I was working for the top home builder in our valley. I became the #1 realtor for our company, and I had these great benefits and residuals coming in from my television commercials. So it was a huge pivot in my life. And I thought back often, what if I hadn't asked myself the tough questions, right? And more importantly, what if I hadn't been honest enough, hadn't been courageous enough to answer them honestly? And I think that's the thing for all of us. Mark and I say there are 3 channels through which we need to ask, and those are ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. And each of those channels is so important to learn to utilize if we're going to keep moving in our lives and not get stuck.
And speaking of not getting stuck, as you're watching or listening right now, I don't know if you're as inspired by the story as I am, but I want you to think about this. Like, what it'd be worth if you could sit down and just ask a better question? Are you taking the easy way, or are you taking and doing everything in your power to move forward, to transform your situation, right? That one simple question, 18 months later, just 18 months later, to have the ability to be the #1 realtor, to be partners, to be able to have residuals coming from the, like, what would happen for you? Maybe those exact results don't happen for you, and probably don't, but like, what would it be worth if you could have this kind of powerful transformation by just asking better questions of yourself, of others, and of God? How would it transform the game for you? So I ask you, if this is what you want, if you want to have the ability to transform, stress and overwhelm into opportunity and a whole lot more, when we come back, we're going to take a deep dive to go into the ask and how your dreams can turn to your destiny with Mark Victor Hansen, and the ability to work with Crystal and know exactly how to do that step by step. More when we come back right after this on growthtofreedom.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of growthtofreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day, or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtofreedom.com. Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com. Now, I don't know if you were inspired by the story that Crystal shared with you, but again, what would it be worth for you to be able to ask better questions? And I want to just read you an excerpt from the book. And speaking of the idea of dealing with roadblocks around asking, it's the story of Michaela. And you've got to go into the book to understand the story, the full story of Michaela. But this really stood out for me. Be careful what you choose, Michaela. Everything you think and do is a choice. Your decisions are powerful and will decide your path. Certain choices will lead you to your destiny, and others far from it. The key is to ask again and again and again and again. Never stop asking. Now, I ask you, what are you going to ask today? Now, Mark, as we dive into this, there's so much wisdom in the book. I want to dive into the business side of this in part 2, starting around pages 172 in the book. And by the way, you're going to want to get your copy, and we'll talk about how you can get your copy of the book coming up around the corner. Before we get into the business side of it, I actually want to talk, what do you consider, what are a couple of the roadblocks or challenges or mistakes you see most people making around asking or asking better questions?
You got 3 things going there at once, Dan, and I appreciate everyone. First of all, as you know, because I did the chicken soup for the soul, and when you get goosebumps, God bumps, and chili bumps, you know you're on the truth. I'd never heard anyone read the fable of Michaela, which, ladies and gentlemen, we started this book. It was written totally 100% by my wife, and she was going to put it in 4 parts. And I said, look, this is such a critical story. We're going to make it into a movie. At least that's our vision and hope and prayer. It gave me those kind of goosebumps, but I've never heard anyone other than the 2 of us read it out loud. It really got me. So thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a transformational story because we think it's like Shakespeare, the story of every man and every woman. As for your business question, asking, saved my life when I went bankrupt. It has rebuilt my businesses again and again, because every business pulsates. It goes ups and downs. Everybody thinks that because, you sold 500 million books, you can only go up. No. Jack and I got rejected by 144 people, and then our agent fired us. And then when we're selling more books than anyone, I called the New York Times. I said, look, to be the best seller, you only got to sell 20,000 a week. I'm doing more than that. You won't let me be on the list. She said, sir, you are a multi-authored book. I said, yeah. I said, and? She said, we at New York Times, with great disdain, says, we don't take multi-authored books. I said, lady, are you sure? Remember, question is the answer. She said, I'm sure. I said, madam, you have the Bible. It has 66 authors, unless we do maps, and it's 720. Are you sure? She said, you're in next week, boy. And I like that she called me boy because I was already 50. So
our new journey starts at 50. I'm in my 50s now. So
happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. So as far as the roadblocks, Mark, or Crystal, you guys can both, dive into this. What do you see as the biggest mistakes that most people make around just opening up? I know for me, like the reason I bring this up is, if you're watching or listening, maybe you were like me 20 years ago where you'd meet someone like Mark and you'd almost stand on the sidelines. You take all their wisdom in, you do whatever you could to help support them. And like in a case of filling seats at events or seminars or get people to buy their books or whatever, but you wouldn't go that extra level for whatever reason. You were reserved or shy. You saw yourself as introverted. Like that was me 20 years ago. And it's very real. So you might be facing that now. So Mark, Crystal, what do you guys see are some of the roadblocks that someone can break out of that today?
Because we analyze this deeply. We said there's 7 basic roadblocks. All of us have one or more operating simultaneously. All of us have to look at them, like Crystal said, objectively and then subjectively from the inside out and say, hey, how am I going to transform? First one we see that hits almost everybody is a lack of self-worth. So you got to work on that. Second one is fear, which, the old acronym is false evidence appearing as real. And FDR said it so well during the Depression, confront your fears and make it disappear. And because you're in a business thing here, and I'm a scholar in Napoleon Hill, Dr. Hill, Think and Grow Rich, said he wrote all those fireside chats to overcome fear. I don't know if you know that. He wrote all those for FDR for 12 years. So, and got paid $1 a year. And they said, well, you're the nap to sap. So the next one is I'm not going to do them in order, but is disconnection. And we think in the height of cell phones where everybody thinks I'm connected, you're less connected than ever. So we're saying disconnection. We're saying excusology. We're saying pattern paralysis. We're saying every one of those devastates a human being. And with that, I'll hand it off to my beloved.
Well, yeah, I'll add to that, Dan. So each of us is born as young children. We come into this world in this beautiful, perfected state, right? Unabashed to ask anything. We want to know everything. We want to know who, what, when, where, why, how. And we ask. We also ask for more, right? That is our natural human spirit, wanting to evolve, wanting to learn, wanting to grow. But over time, that gets crushed out of us. And it's so sad, whether it's through, parenting. We all grew up in a different way. You're asking a lot of questions. You're told, quit asking so many questions. Or, you go to school, listen to the teacher, stop asking questions, only ask if you're called on, jobs, a lot of work situations. No one wants to hear your suggestions. No one's asking. It's just like, do as you're told. And on and on and on, just basic life's rejection. It starts to crush that beautiful natural curiosity and natural ability to ask and to not be ashamed of wanting more. That's what you're here for. You're here to grow. You're here to evolve. You're here to want more. So that's why Mark and I said we have to help people rekindle this spirit of asking inside of them. And one of the roadblocks is naivete. And it's a big one because, when you go back to the 3 channels through which we can ask yourself, ask others, and ask God, then the naivete is important. I tell a story in there about how we had this beautiful Filipino woman who worked for us when my kids were tiny, and she'd come every day and cook these great meals. And she brought this fruit one morning and cut it up and put it on a plate and said, try this. And I looked at this juicy orange fruit. I'm like, what is this? I tasted it. And it was so divine. I was like, this is the best fruit I've ever tasted. What is this, Melda? And she goes, it's a mango. And I go, a mango? Why have I never tasted a mango before? Where did you get this? Thinking she'd imported it from the Philippines. She goes, at the grocery store. And I thought, how did I miss that? How naive am I? What else am I missing through my own naivete, right? what people am I passing passing by every day, never being curious enough to find out more about them? Because what if they're the most amazing person I ever met? Or it's the most amazing business connection I've ever made? What opportunities am I passing by every day because I'm naive and I've lost my curiosity about things and about life? So Mark and I discovered that is one of the most important roadblocks, is to rekindle that. Don't be naive. We're naive. We're all naive, but it's the curiosity that gets us past our own naivety, right?
Absolutely. And as you're listening or watching right now, are some of these blocks impacting you? You know, the lack of self-worth. I know when I was a kid, I was brought up in the inner city of Detroit, you know, and, you know, the story you shared, Crystal, about food stamps. I had to go to the grocery store at Farmer Jack's in the inner city of Detroit and buy stuff with food stamps and get laughed at. And I knew that I did not want that to happen, not for me ever again, nor did I want it to happen for my family. And I started on this trajectory. What is that for you? Or how about fear? What false evidence that's appearing real for you right now? It is holding you back, keeping you stuck, or being disconnected in a world that's gone wild with technology that's supposed to connect us. It's an artificial intimacy, right? How are you connected or disconnected? What could you do about that? Now, speaking of what you can do about these blocks, Mark, I don't know if I heard this from you or who, but many years ago, I met someone who said, you know, all it takes is about 10 seconds of courage. Speak to the idea of having 10 seconds of courage, especially as it relates to ask and be open to ask.
Okay, so not only did we write about our own story, which we could talk about endlessly, and then we did all the interviews from Cambridge and Harvard and Stanford, but then we interviewed 26 master askers, one of whom I think you know, Jim Stovall. At 19, he's going to be a superstar football player. He gets recruited by the NFL, football, NFL. And he goes in medical. The doctor comes back shaking his head and said, kid, this is the worst news I've ever had to give anyone. I'm sorry, but 6 months from now, you're going to be totally, absolutely, permanently blind. Well, he goes self-incarcerates himself at his home, and he's got a radio, a telephone, and a television, and a 9x12 room, and he's moaning his fate, and his parents say, Jimmy, get on to the blind meeting. Well, it's an echo chamber of negativity, and we're saying everybody's got to shut off all the negativity. 15 minutes of media a day is the most. He goes there, but he sits next to this woman, and he said, I used to love to watch TV and see somebody throw a right hook. Somebody ought to do something about that. This is a pivotal question to reboot everybody. She said, wait a second, Jim, we're somebody. Why can't we do something? Crushing the story, so it's short for the show. They created narrative TV, one of the biggest 3 streaming systems in the world. 14 million people a day watch at $10 a month that are blind. Now, you and I are sighted, and the people watching are probably sighted and don't even know that it exists, because why would you need it? But the point is, he wrote a book called The Ultimate Gift, a phenomenal book. I wrote the foreword and the afterword, and I said, this is one of the clearest books I've ever read. I need this to become a movie. And sure enough, he let us interview him. This guy is just pure wisdom, and we love him. And yes, he's blind, but boy, can he see. He said, you don't have to be blind to really see like I do. But he said, I now write books that I can't read, and I make movies that I can't watch. And his movie made $100 million. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time we all say, what is it that I can fix? An entrepreneur takes a problem, fixes it for, I say, a vast profit.
Amazing. And I don't know if you're getting the chills, but think about that. You don't have to be blind to be able to write, read. You know, you've got something inside of you to get out to the world, to make a bigger difference, to make a bigger impact, to help more people, to help solve problems, small problems, big problems. And it starts with you. Like, what if one thing that Mark and Crystal have shared with you can help open the door for you to just ask a better question? Now, you guys talk about the pivot your destiny by asking. You talk about the one question in the book, part 2, around page 172 or so, the one question to pivot your entire business career. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, by the way, so I am bankrupt and upside down in 1974. I'm in New York City. I built the Wall Street Racket Club, botanical gardens, aviaries, geodesic domes. I've been at graduate school with Dr. Fuller, who invented them. I crashed and burned because I was building out of plastic at exactly the wrong time. Arab said, we can write checks so big your banks will bounce. And I asked the wrong question. That's the point. You ask the right question, you go the right way. Your wrong question, go the wrong way. I said, what if I go bankrupt? And I checked a book out of the library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself. But it was my best, worst experience. 6 months I'm sleeping out in front of another guy's room in a sleeping bag. And I asked myself, what do I want to do? I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. I asked my 3 roommates in Hicksville, Long Island, New York, you know anyone that's not a lawyer, not a doctor, not a celebrity, not famous, and is young, that's speaking? And they said, yeah, this guy Chip Collins, I'm in real estate, here's a ticket. He mesmerized the audience for 500 people for 3 hours. I go up to him, I said, I'd like to buy your lunch and learn how to do it. He said, kids, stay out of real estate because that's mine in these 5 boroughs of New York. I'll teach you how to do it in insurance, but the chance you making it 1 in 1,000, you're not going to make it. Chip Collins became my best friend. I did well. I did only Tony Robbins and I, as far as I know, did 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years I did it. Then they said, well, do you have that story in a book? I wrote my first book, Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win. I said, this is not a New York Times bestseller. This is not an international bestseller. This is not a national bestseller. This is my bestseller. I tripled my income. I sold 20,000 copies during the worst time. Interest rates are 28%. 20,000 copies at $10 each, mostly cash. Signed every one of the books to everybody in the audience. And I took in $200,000. I got to tell you, Dan, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I had arrived. And I knew I was in my right livelihood.
That's so powerful. And Crystal, how about as far as the question for you, like from a business point of view, like what's a question our viewers, our listeners could ask to pivot today?
Yeah, I think it's like, what am I good at? What excites me? What do people, and I like asking other people, if you could say, what are my, what's my best quality? What is that? I mean, so it all starts with, in that asking journey, we talked about asking yourself, asking others, and ask God, right? Well, we say it all starts by asking yourself. That's the reflective journey. And that, Dan, is what people don't do. We don't do it often enough. If we don't sit with ourselves and take that time, we say there are 3 critical phases of that asking yourself journey. And that is, phase 1 is, where am I now? Mm-hmm. And all those questions that are going to come under that main question, where am I now? Do I like what I'm doing? Do I feel good about myself? If I was to imagine my perfect scenario, what is that? What's working? What is not working? Because sometimes we're on that hamster wheel and it's not working. And we just never stop to question it, right? That's that pattern paralysis that we were talking about in the Roadblocks. Yes. And the second critical phase is, where do I want to be? So often we keep running through life and never stopping to ask ourselves, is this what I really want? Okay. Is this my dream? Is this my definition of success? Am I on purpose? What Mark and I like to do is say, imagine your ultimate amazing scenario, whether it's in your career or relationships. Imagine that amazing ultimate scenario and say, in my greatest vision of success, what am I doing every day? Who am I talking to? Who are my colleagues? Who are my peers in my greatest vision of success for myself? Because if you're willing to take the time to do this reflective journey, the asking yourself part, you will literally start to sculpt the architecture for the life you really want. And then the third critical phase of that questioning is, what are the specific steps I need to take to get there, to get to that beautiful creation that I just created by asking where I want to be? So.
And as you're listening or you're watching right now, like, what type of clarity would it give you to go through these 3 steps? Where are you now? Right. And by the way, I want to encourage you to come back to this episode with what Mark and Crystal have been sharing with you, because there's just so much wisdom already in just a few short minutes. You can come back to this episode at growthtofreedom.com/298. That's growthtofreedom.com/298. But step 1, where are you now? Where are you now? Number 2 is, where do you want to be? Not just where do you want to go, but where do you want to be? I've heard Mark describe it. You've got to be first, to do, to have, right? So where do you want to be? Number 3 is, what are the steps to get there? What are the steps to get there? Now, I'm going to also recommend you get this book, and not just get the book, buy 2 copies, one for you and one for a friend, so that you can team up together, partner together, and go through this journey, go through this process, the questions, not only for you personally, but also your business, your career, and a whole lot more. Now, I'm curious, as we kind of wind this down, guys, what would you say would be like 1 to 5 action steps that you hope our viewers and our listeners would take as a result of us being together?
Well, we're so excited about it. Everybody that gets a book, we want them to go to askthebookclub.com, and we're going to have for free teach them how to be master askers. But the answer to your question, the 5 takeaways. Number 1, we want you all to become a master asker, and you got to figure out, like we said, number 1, what do you want? You got to keep asking yourself, what do you want? And then ask, like Crystal just said, 10 of your friends to write out what they see as your master superpower. And we're teaching that because everyone's got a superpower. God doesn't make any junk, right? And that's why we're saying you got to ask God, what's your destiny for me 400 times before you go to sleep at night? And so you figure out what you want. What do I really want? Number 2, you got to put it in writing, because there's spiritual law that says write a thing, make it clear, it'll be established onto you. And when Jack and I wrote down we're going to be #1 New York Times bestseller, I got to tell you, all the people, the 144 people that turned us down thought, you guys are a wacko. and we visualized it to realize it. And in my case, because I wanted to be world's best-selling author, I interviewed, not Jack. I interviewed the 101 best-selling fiction, nonfiction guys, and I didn't say, hey, Dan, tell me how you write. I know how to write. Tell me how you market, which is one of your masteries. And I interviewed everybody from, Daniel Steele to Scott Peck, and here in our city, of course, Clive Cussler. And then, so you visualize it to realize it, and then you just go do the do, number 5.
Go do the do. Now, as you're watching or listening, Mark went through that really quick. So you're going to want to come back to this episode, growthtofreedom.com/298, to get those 5 steps. Now, Crystal, Mark, how can people get the book? Like, where can they go to connect with you? You brought up askthebookclub.com,
Yes.
But where can they go to get the book?
Yes, so go to Amazon.com, best place to go to get books right now, especially with all the craziness. A lot of bookstores have been, it's a long story anyway. Amazon's the best place to get the book. We've got it in audiobook, Kindle, every version. And it's being purchased around the world. Like, it's really catching on, even in Germany and places like that. So we're super excited. And then, we'd love for you to reach out and connect with us. I'm at Crystal Dwyer Hansen on all, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, Mark is at Mark Victor Hansen. And my website is crystalvisionlife.com. You can go there and get an audio that's really helping people right now. It's a free download. It's called Purge Messy Thinking. Super important right now with all the craziness that's going on and the feelings that everyone's having right now. It really helps get past some of that negative thinking. And then of course, markvictorhansen.com. There's a free gift there as well. So
I want to encourage you, as you're listening or watching right now, take notes right in this second. Open your phone, open a browser, and I want you to go to a couple places right now, because there's no sense in waiting. Like, as I share with my 14-year-old and my 12-year-old, when's now the best time to do this? Now is the best time. So here's the thing. Go to crystalvisionlife.com. That's crystalvisionlife.com. Purge Messy Thinking. Get the tool, get the free gift, the free bonus to be able to take advantage of that. Why? Why do you want to do that? Like, have you noticed that right now more than ever, we're in overwhelm, burnout, a little bit of distress? Maybe some of your friends, your family, your business associates, your peers are suffering from some of those things. What a gift it would be to give them the gift of being able to purge messy thinking, doing, behaviors, those sorts of things. You can get that right now for free at crystalvisionlife.com. That's crystalvisionlife.com. You can go check out their site at crystaldwyerhansen.com. And by the way, we'll have all the links in the show notes as well. You can come back to the episode at growthtofreedom.com/298. That's growthtofreedom.com/298. crystalDwyerHansen.com. That's crystalDwyerHansen.com. And then markvictorhansen.com as well. And I also want to add one more. askthebookclub.com. askthebookclub.com as well, to get those resources. And we'll also have a link to the Amazon, ability. You probably are familiar with Amazon though, aren't you? As you're listening or watching, just click over there right now. Don't wait. Get you and a friend or a couple friends or multiple friends, or get all your business friends copies of the book as well. Now, as we wind, and there's the book. So there you go.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Now, as we wind this down, I like to mix in some personal things. Guys, you guys have been married for how long?
Well, we got married in May of 2011, so we're 9 years now.
9 years.
Yeah.
Well, we've been indefatigably together for over a dozen.
Amazing.
A glued to her.
He's glued to me.
Not only is I wrote down 267 things I needed in an ideal wife because I'd had a tragic first experience. So all the values, virtues, qualities, and she was 267 out of 267, and we had to have all the same values, all the same spiritual thinking. She had to own her own business. She had to be her own person, had to be strong, had to want to travel,
Amazing. As you're listening, by the way, and watching, like, you might be thinking to yourself, 267 qualities. Wouldn't you like to get inside the mind of like one of the real geniuses in the world? I want to encourage you, get the book and start exploring some of the other resources that Mark and Crystal have available. I mean, it will blow your mind, the thinking behind it. I mean, there's so many credentials I didn't have time to get into, but it's a list of who's who items. And I know for me, I've been profoundly impacted by Mark's work and what he stands for, who he is in so many ways. I mean, just 15 years ago, I was about 85 pounds heavier than I am now. I was in the middle of my business. I had two businesses that ultimately we were able to grow up over 20 million and then sell and exit. Very blessed to be able to do that. But part of the thinking, a catalyst to that was some of Mark's teaching, Mark's work. And you know what? It can have an amazing impact personally, professionally, your health, your finance. I mean, there's so many different ways that it can help. And Ask is a great start to be able to give you the way to ignite to get through what we're dealing with right now, right? Because think about it. Like, what if you could just ask that one question? Mark gave you 5 simple steps, right? You got to be a master asker, number 1. Number 2, you've got to put it in writing, right? Don't just type it on your computer, but put it in writing. This book, I have books in my bookshelf over here. I write. I don't type my notes. There's a reason for that. And I think I first may have learned that from Mark and the power of writing versus putting it down just in computers. Number 3 is you got to visualize to realize, right? On top of that, ask 10 friends, what are your superpowers? Or what do you see my superpowers as? I'll tell you what, when you do this exercise, you will be blown away with humility, grace, clarity on who you really show up to be. Like, what would that be worth to you? And there's so much more. So again, I want to encourage you, go to askthebookclub.com, go to crystalvisionlife.com, crystalvisionlife.com, go to crystaldwyerhansen.com, markvictorhansen.com, dive into the reason. Most importantly, take action with what we've shared with you about, I mean, we're just giving you, we're giving you a glance at so much wisdom in the book, and it can help you, can help your family, help your friends, help your kids, and a whole lot more. So as you guys have been married and on this journey, this may sound like a really strange question, but I'm going to let you guys decide who goes first. No, I'm going to challenge you, Crystal.
Okay. I accept.
If you were to turn to Mark right now, because we're together, and you were to thank Mark for how he shows up every day to allow you to be your very best, what would you thank him for?
Oh gosh, I would thank him. Just what you said. Thank you for holding such a beautiful space for me to just be my best. It is amazing. I'm telling you, he is an amazing person. What you see, in front of the scenes, it's even better behind the scenes, truly. I mean, he's the most considerate man I have ever met. Actually, one of the most considerate people I have ever met. He always thinks of things that he can do to make my day a little bit better, whether it's like putting water on my table at night or, making sure my towel is thrown over the door so that I don't have to get chilled when I come out. It's just unbelievable. The shower, yeah. but I think I'm just so grateful that we both wake up each day wanting, with the intention that we're going to deliberately make the day great. You know, we're going to look for what's right and not what's wrong. You know, and of course we have to correct course. We have to do, you know, a positive critique about what we're doing, if it was what's working, what's not working, by asking the questions. But for the most part, we try to stay in that. We both have a deep desire to be in a state of joy. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Taking us behind the scenes. Mark, if you were going to turn to Crystal and how she's shown up for you to be your best self, what would you thank her for?
She's the most amazing woman 24/7. I told her when we were first dating, and we, you know, she just made my whole spirit and life tingle. And I said, holy cow, I could live on a desert island with you and just the two of us, because back to the question thing, we never stop asking each other questions. And so, you know, the question we've been asked on so many podcasts, well, how do you guys handle 24/7 being in lockdown? Well, we love and adore and cherish each other, and we happen to be doing podcasts. So thank God podcasting came along, but we can't travel very much because everything's in lockdown. We can't go to Hawaii, can't go to Mexico, can't do a lot of things that we normally do, or Europe or Asia. And so it had been more than perfect. And then fortuitously, the bigger answer, we're falling in love. We're at a restaurant called Mother's at Costa Mesa, eating green, healthy food to be vigorous and lively and energetic. And old man of the cloth is sitting next to us. It's senior, like he's 90 years old, and he leans in and says, I see how in love you two are. Can I tell you how to stay married? And I thought, that's a strange question, but I get goosebumps saying, yeah, I'd like to hear that. He said, well, I'm head of Billy Graham Ministry, and we found only one thing works. Of course, that begs the question, and what's that? Right. Pray out loud together in the morning and at night. And we spend an hour a day when we start our day every morning in prayer and meditation. And we pray out loud before. Now, Crystal and I both prayed at church. We prayed in front of groups, but we never, spousally, we never prayed and ourselves a lot. But, you know, once you decide to do that, you really get glued together at levels. And, you know, we pray for ourselves, our family, our country, our world, because we are so connected in so many places.
Amazing. Amazing.
And by the way, it touches our heart because it works. I mean, we can pray. I've never done this, sounds like a boast, but when we pray and decide to do something, it happens.
And as you're watching or listening right now, what would that be worth to, you know, be able to, we'll call it, tune into that higher power, that higher purpose for you, your family, your kids, you know, people that matter most, that mean the most to you. You know, I know for me, also having a marriage that failed for a lot of different reasons, being disconnected being one of, being a workaholic, giving my family leftovers because I was so committed to work, making that mistake. I look at this simple thing. We historically do a gratitude exercise together every night, which, you know, could be considered a version of prayer. And like, what would that be worth? That one simple, like, yes, you're going to learn some of the best business strategies in the world from this concept of ask. And you can go get it inside the book. And we've given you an ability to be able to do that. Even deeper, what would it be worth to forge your relationships, your marriage, your kids, to give them the foundation, you know, a solid place. Now, as we wrap this up, and you know, being respectful of time, what's something I should have asked you guys that we didn't get a chance to ask you yet as we wrap up?
Oh gosh, Dan, you've done such a great job. I mean, there's just so, like you said, I encourage everybody to grab the book. There are so many amazing stories about business, about individuals in business. We just don't have time to go through them today, where, you know, they were able to step on that fear and they were scared, really, really scared to do it. But when they were able to step on their fear with that courage, miracles happened. And so when you go through these stories, and the entire book, you know, the stories are beautiful because the stories are a metaphor for all of us. It's a metaphor for our own lives. And a metaphor is nothing more than just a pattern for our brains to emulate. So it's a really important exercise for us to read other people's stories and victories and how they had overcome their tragedies to create triumph. We learn so much from doing that. So Yeah, I mean, I think you've done such an amazing interview today. I just encourage everybody to get the book and dive into it, mark it, go back to the things that really resonate with you. Because when you reread something, Mark and I do this all the time. That's why we do love physical books. We've got it in Kindle and audiobook and everything, but we go back and we use it as a reference. When we have a good book like this that is teaching us something, you'll look at it one day and then 2 months from now, you'll find a whole different new meaning. So we say, reflect back, go back again and again, and mark the places that really are meaningful to you.
And I want to encourage you to look at it that way too. Don't look at it as a book. Look at it as a lifelong tool, a lifelong companion. One thing I know about all the work that I've, taken advantage of from Mark, from his audio programs to books over the years, is they are more like lifelong companions than they are just a book, a one-off. And so I encourage you, take me up on it. And I will personally guarantee, if you get the book and you don't think it's going to transform your life, send me the book. I'll refund your money. You don't have to do it through Amazon. Do it through me. Right?
What a man.
Awesome,
yeah, very kind.
You are so cool. We love you.
Because obviously books and tapes, we're reflecting. I probably spent, I've made more money than most people by far, but I've spent over $1 million on self-improvement and growth and transformation. So, and the trouble is that so few of us avail great podcasts like yours that they can listen to, grow, expand. And that's why our corporate symbol is a butterfly, but it starts out, you can't look at a caterpillar and see it. And right now we're all in the cocoon together. It's 8 billion of us currently alive, and we're going to go into high flight again. It's going to resonate. It's going to be more exciting, more opportunity. And if you go to my website, I give you a free book saying, here's the 50 trillion, not billion, trillion dollars of business America's going to do from 2020 to 2030. And all you got to do is know what they are so you can go participate. And you say, well, I don't have a job and I got fired at the airlines or whatever. You say, right, I got it. Now either be a victim or be a victor. And we want you to emerge our corporate symbols of butterfly, like I put on 1 Minute Millionaire, because it is a universal symbol of freedom. And ladies and gentlemen, we are here to come out free. And that's what Dan's espousing so articulately and elegantly.
And there you have it. I encourage you, take action with what Crystal and Mark have shared with you. Put this in place. Get the book. You won't be disappointed. Get the book, and then most importantly, start using it as your lifelong guide. Start asking the better questions. Start asking, where am I now? Where do I want to be? What are the steps, right? Go into the business side. Go and take advantage of the tools that Crystal and Mark have gifted you at their site. Again, all the links, you can come back to this episode at growthtoFreedom.com/298. That's growthtoFreedom.com/298. If you never want to miss an episode, go to growthtoFreedom.com/subscribe. That's growthtoFreedom.com/subscribe. Seize the day. Make it a great week. We'll see you next time on growthtoFreedom.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of growthtoFreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day? Or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtoFreedom.com.